Hello everyone, we are going to start the lecture series of the compiler design. This is the first lecture of my compiler design. In this lecture, we are just going to cover these topics. That is, first one is the translator, types of the translator, language processing systems, types of compiler, operation of compiler, and what are the advantages of the compiler design. The first one is, what is translator? A translator is a program that takes as input a program written in one language and produce the output a program in another language. Beside the program translation, the translator performs another important role, that is error detection. And the translator, there are two important roles of the translator: translating the high-level language program into an equivalent machine language program, and another one is the providing the diagnostics message wherever the program violates specification of the high-level language. There are three types of translator. First one is the compiler, next interpreter, and third is the preprocessor. Right now we are just going to explain what is compiler. What is compiler? A compiler is a computer program that translates the source program written in a programming language into a machine code that can be executed by the computer. And the process of translation is called the compilation process, or simply the compilation. The source code is usually written in a high-level programming language such as C, C++, or Java, which is easy for a human to read and write. Machine code, on the other hand, is a low-level language that consists of a series of instructions that can be directly executed by the computer's processor. So in this figure we can see this is the source code. After compilation, if there is no such error, the program will execute properly. Otherwise, if any kind of error message is there, the compiler will show that one. Now we are just going to see what is interpreter. Interpreter, actually it translates the code written in a high-level programming language into machine code, and that is actually executed line by line as the code runs. See, this is my source program. Interpreter, first it will check any error is there or not. If any error will there, so it will stop there and it will show the error message, and if there is no such error, then it will proceed. So that is the main difference between the compiler and the interpreter. Compiler, after in full program you are writing, if any error is there, then it will produce that error, but interpreter is not like that. Line by line, that error it is checking. So the process of interpretation can be carried out in the following phases. First one is the lexical analysis, then syntax analysis, semantic analysis, and last one is the direct execution. What are this one? We will proceed in our next lecture. Right now we are just going to see what is language processing system. What is language processing system? The language processing system actually it involves in a different steps like source program, preprocessor, compiler, assembler, loader, and linker. Right. So right now we are just going to see what is preprocessor, compiler, assembler, and loader and linker. So compiler and compiler, these things we have already done. So right now we are just going to see what is preprocessor. So source program may be divided into modules that is stored in separate files, right? So what is preprocessor? Collects all the separate files to the source program. A preprocessor produce input to the compilers, and they may perform these actions like macro processing, file inclusion, then then rational processor, and language extension. So we are just going to see what are they one by one. First one is the macro processing. What is macro processing? A preprocessor may allow a user to define macros that are shorthands for the longer constructs. And what is file inclusion? A processor may include header file into the program text, that is called your file inclusion. Then next, coming to the rational preprocessor. What is this one? This preprocessor augments the older language with more modern flow of control and data structuring facilities. And last one is the language extension. What is language extension? These preprocessor attempts to add capabilities to the language by certain amounts to build in macro. Right now we are going to see what is assembler. The programs found it difficult to write or read programs in machine language, whatever we have discussed before. So they begin to use a symbols for each machine instruction, which they would subsequently translate into machine language. Such a symbols machine language is now called an assembly language. Programs known as assembler were written to automate the translation of assembly language into machine language. So the input to an assembler language is called the source program, and the output is a machine language translation. We can also say, or it is also known as object program. Now coming to what is loader and linker. A loader is a program that places programs into memory and prepares them for execution. It would be more efficient if subroutines could be translated into object from the loader could relocate directly behind the user's program. Okay, and finally it will actually produce the target machine code. Now we are just going to see what are the types of compiler. So there are three types of compilers. First one is the single pass compiler, two pass compiler, and multi-pass compiler. We are just going to explain one by one. What is single pass compiler? When all the phases of the compiler are present inside a single module, it is simply called a single pass computer. It performs the work of converting the source code to machine code. And what is two pass compiler? Two pass compiler is a compiler in which the program is translated twice, once from the front end and the back end from the back end, known as two pass compiler. Then coming to the multi-pass computer. What is multi-pass computer? When several intermediate codes are created in a program and a syntax tree is processed many times, then it is called multi-pass computers. It breaks codes into smaller programs. In case of multi-pass computer, it breaks the code into smaller programs. Then we are just going to see what type of operation actually compiler performs. Source programs are divided into smaller components, and it helps in error detection and code compilation. Not only that one, it converts the source code to machine code, it creates the symbol table and intermediate representation, and finally, after analyzing the full program, it translates it. Now you will see what are the advantages of the compiler design. There are several advantages like efficiency, portability, security, and debugging support. We are just going to discuss one by one. The first one, efficiency. What is the meaning of this one? Compiled code tends to run faster than the intermediate code because it has been translated into machine code. Again I am repeating, compiled code tends to run faster than interpreted code because it has been translated into